Tyler Gillison, Ru'Quan Buckley, they commit to Michigan State, but is it enough to shore up all of our concerns about depth on the defensive side of the ball? And then we get to your mailbag questions on NIL, the best hold to play at Forest Akers, and so much more. Let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That is $150 with any winning $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On Spartans, your team in green and white 5 days a week. Please rate, review, subscribe, comment below on YouTube how you're feeling about the transfer portal pickups today. And if you're on the podcast or just want to reach out with a longer question or comment anyway, lockedonspartans@gmail.com is the best place to find us. All right, let's dive into the show here because 2 transfer portal pickups, at least at the time of recording. There's still plenty of a ways to go here in the spring transfer season. Yes, no more players can enter, but they have until kickoff of the season to join teams here. The 2 latest Spartans, Tyler Gillison out of Cincinnati and then Ru'Quan Buckley out of Nebraska. We will start with Tyler Gillison because, well, he's the guy that committed to Michigan State first on this beautiful Monday. So let's learn more about the 6'4", 242-pound edge from Cincinnati. Played a little bit of outside linebacker too for the Bearcats last season, but we will be seeing him play defensive end or that edge rush position here for Michigan State. So this will be his 3rd year of college, and if the name Gillison rings a bell, you might already know this by now. Younger brother of former Michigan State Spartan tight end Trenton Gillison. So that's the second Gillison to come through the program. Now, last year, 10 games is how many games Tyler played for Cincinnati. 15 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss as a backup. There were 2 seniors that were starting at the defensive end roles over there for the Bearcats program. So just 10 games for Tyler Gillison, again, entering his 3rd year of college. So 2 more years of eligibility for him. So where does the defensive end room stand right now for Michigan State? Your projected starters, we're going to throw around 3 names here because these are the top 3 guys for the 2 starting positions. Chris Bogle, feel pretty good about him getting the starting role at one of those defensive end spots. And then the other 2 will be decided between Avery Dunn, Jalen Thompson. Avery Dunn was shown as the starter at the spring showcase. I think with Jalen Thompson, how strong he ended last year as a true freshman and just the good pedigree he brings, I would assume that he's going to be jumping up in that starting role sooner than later. But nevertheless, that's the top 3 guys right there. Anthony Jones, transfer from Indiana. Tyler Gillison, the guy we just talked about, the transfer from Cincinnati. And then young up-and-comer James Schott. That will be your 2 deep right there. Quindarius Dunnigan, I guess you could paint him as a defensive end. I'm pretty high on him, especially after what he showed in spring practice and the showcase. So if you want to paint him as a defensive end, by all means, go ahead and jam him up there closer to the 1s than the 2s. And then Ken Talley, we'll see where he falls anywhere on defense right now. That's the kind of guy where former 4-star high school recruit, but he's just kind of a tweener at so many positions that we will see where he nets out at. Now, Ru'Quan Buckley, 2 years left for him too, out of Nebraska, but originally from Wyoming, Michigan. So he is heading back to the Mitten State to play for Michigan State. Last year, just played in 8 games, 60 snaps total on defense for Nebraska. And actually, by the end of the year, he switched to offensive line. So we're getting this guy 6'5", 305 pounds. He will project as a defensive tackle here for Michigan State. I don't necessarily see him switching over to the offensive line here, although, hey, who knows? Interior offensive line depth is a little hairy right now, so we'll see. But as of now, yeah, the plan is for him to play defensive tackle. So let's take a gander at the defensive tackle room right now. Daquan Dowse, the transfer from Georgia Tech, and then Maverick Hansen are the 2 projected starters. Now, right behind that, of course, Ru'Quan Buckley, Alex Van Sumeren, the very promising kid out of high school, 4-star talent, top 300 player in the nation. 2 big knee injuries, though, so far early in his career, so let's pump the brakes on expectations for him. So far, if we can get anywhere close to what he was projected as out of high school, God, we'd love to see that for Alex Van Sumeren. Also, Ben Nelson, former walk-on offensive lineman who actually played some reps at defensive tackle late last season. And then true freshman Mike Shun Beeler. So depth is still a concern. It is kind of my thesis of all this, guys. Not to be a negative Nancy about all this. I'm going to shoot you straight, though. I'm not going to come on here and saying that, hey, all of our issues are concerned, and I think the coaching staff knows that, too. I think they still will pursue defensive linemen here. But these are good, just rotational pickups for Michigan State. But let's just go through the defensive tackle again right now. Daquan Dowse, Maverick Hansen. Right behind that, I mean, depth is still very touch and go. Alex Van Sumeren, who we talked about, knee injuries. Ru'Quan Buckley, just 60 snaps for Nebraska last year. And then we're looking at a converted offensive lineman, former walk-on in Ben Nelson, and then a true freshman, Mike Shun Beeler. Like, that's not a lot of experience, guys. Right behind Daquan Dowse, who were pretty, that's a good pickup for Michigan State this offseason. And then Maverick Hansen, a guy that's been here, my God, since the John L. Smith administration. But yeah, there is some depth concerns here. So let's get right into a mailbag question. This is from I Speak in Green and White. The question is, will our defense be able to stand against these pretty solid Big Ten offenses? I've seen so many people leave via the transfer portal, and at this point, I have no idea how our defense is looking. This is how I see it. We gained a starter at the corner position in Ed Woods. That was a great pickup from Arizona State. Okay, that takes care of one of the starting corner roles. And then you probably got a starter in Wayne Matthews. Now, will he be one of the first 11 on the field? Maybe not, but that's a guy that's going to play enough where by the end of the day, that's going to be starting reps at that linebacker position. And then you added another starter in Daquan Dowse, but there's kind of an asterisk by it because he wouldn't be a starter if you talk about the two guys that left. Obviously, Simeon Barrow, Derek Harmon. Okay, you lost two starters there. And then you lost a third defensive starter in Jaden Mangum. So, yeah, my issue, though, is not necessarily who you lost as a starter, but boy, howdy, G. Willikers, the depth is very touch and go at many of these positions. Now, with that said, will our defense be able to stand against these Big Ten offenses? I got to say, my expectation for the season before spring portal season was 7-5. Leaving, it's still 7-5. And FanDuel also went from 5.5 as your over-under to also 5.5 after the portal cycle. Now, with that said, even though I'm still firm in my 7-5 projection, I do get a little worried because it's not the starters that I'm necessarily worried about. It is everyone behind the starters. Okay, guys, look, let's just go position group by position group right here. Dylan Tatum, Malik Spencer, your two safeties. All right, they're fine. But right behind them, it's Armarion Smith, who showed good flashes last year. But then true freshman Justin Denson could very well be like the next safety should Malik Spencer go down at cornerback. Yes, you have Chance Rucker, Edwards, Chuck Brantley, guys with starting experience. Right behind them, Day Wiley, who played 109 snaps last year. And then Caleb Coley, who I don't think played more than 36 snaps total. So depth is very hairy there if one of those three guys goes down. Now, linebacker, okay, you're actually feeling okay with right there. All right, I'll stop raining on the parade. There's good bodies and good depth at linebacker. Now, defensive tackle, we would have felt great about Daquan Dowse or Maverick Hansen being one of those guys that come off right off the bench, but no, those are your starters. And we just talked about how the depth kind of falls off a cliff after those two guys as far as experience goes. Defensive end, I mean, I always felt like that was pretty light on experience even going in. It's not like you lost anyone. I mean, sure, you lost by Job, you lost Andrew DePape, but you didn't lose anyone that was either first or second on the depth chart there. So that was always going to be somewhat of a concern. But man, I mean, this is where health is going to play a factor here because second game of the season, that's Maryland, okay? You hope that you would be healthy enough for that game. I hope Michigan State can move through that. After that, Prairie View A&M, and then Boston College. All right, if you get through the first month healthy, you're feeling okay about a 3-1 record. Let's just throw that on the wall right now. It's that second month that I'm worried about, not just because of how good the teams are, but just because of how much that you could be taking some beatings physically against Oregon, Ohio State, Iowa, and Michigan. Like those are going to be some deep, heavy, hard-hitting teams. And if you get a few injuries, okay, guys, like we've talked about how much the last month of the season sets up for you, Indiana, Illinois, Purdue, Rutgers, okay, that's great. But let's say you're down like 3 defensive starters after that October stretch, 4 defensive starters after that October stretch. Those games you feel good against, again, we'll say those teams again, Indiana, Illinois, Purdue, Rutgers, with who is at the 2 deep right now, or God forbid we have to get to the 3 deep at some positions, those become more coin tossy than you would like them to be to end the season. So look, I'm not giving any breaking news here. The coaching staff is well aware of this. That's why they added guys like Tyler Gillison and Ru'Quan Buckley today, and still will try to continue to add at pretty much every position on the football field. So there you have it. We're going to get to a lot more mailbag questions here in a hot second, guys. But first, you need to talk your ears off about the Gametime app, my favorite ticketing app out there. Now, why do I love Gametime so much? For many reasons. Right at the top, how much money they save you. Let's say you're going to an event at the end of the week, let's call it a comedy show, concert, or sporting event. Throughout the week, open up your app. You will see flash deals at great locations to save you money. Now, let's say you're a procrastinator. You're at the other end of the spectrum here. You're walking up to the stadium and you don't even have the tickets yet. You're waiting until the very last minute. Well, Gametime is here for you for that. Their last-minute ticket deals are also second to none. They also want to save you money right off the bat, guys. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets for any ticketed event. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. It's last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Also, FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. We're talking NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, MLB season, PGA golf season, or if you were like me over the weekend, mosey on over to the FanDuel Horse app because, well, if you're going to donate some money for the Kentucky Derby, might as well do it on America's #1 sportsbook. They also had a nice little $20 no-sweat bet for horse racing season. So they always have great promos going on over at FanDuel. Whether it is the horse racing app, whether it is the sportsbook app, guys, they're America's #1 sportsbook for a great reason. And if you're a new customer, well, you're going to find out right off the bat why it's so great, because new customers right now get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That is $150 win or lose. You get to bet on everything from slap shots to slam dunks to three-pointers to home runs to hole-in-ones, all on an app that is safe, secure, and super easy to use. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. It's FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, let's keep swimming in that mailbag here. I sent out a tweet early on Monday at Sheehan_sports just to unload your mailbag questions, and also lockedonspartans@gmail.com if you ever want to reach out to. So Nico is going to be batting first here in this segment. He writes, I keep trying to come up with creative and at least a little funny question, which is why I rarely have mailbag questions, but I guess I'll go serious. If you could only choose one to stay and the other goes completely, would you rather have NIL or the transfer portal? Which one am I going to banish completely from the college game? It is 100% NIL. And that brings me no joy. I think college players should get paid. The amount of money they bring in, the exposure they bring in for their schools, guys, is worth more than a scholarship. I know that's going to make some people upset, but fact of the matter is, look at the money these schools are reeling in. All right, God forbid these guys make some money off their NIL, but it's if I had to get rid of one to go back somewhat to the norm of college sports, it's that. And I'll explain why. Of course I will. I love rambling on this show. So let's get into it. I think if you eliminate NIL, you actually eliminate a lot of the problems with the transfer portal, because the transfer portal is so out of hand by and large because NIL lets teams poach from other teams financially. All right, what is something that we have said, 24 times on this show so far this year? I mean, you're probably sick of hearing this. But guys, what is the best way to get a raise in the real world? We're not even talking about just college sports, but in your 9-to-5 job out there, what's the best way, more times than not, to get a raise? It's by shopping around, applying for different jobs, interviewing with other companies, and then, hey, if you like your normal job so much, you can go back to them saying, hey, this is the offer I have elsewhere. Can you guys match this? Or sometimes they won't match it. But hey, you know what? You just got yourself a 20% raise, because sometimes just sticking around in the same company doesn't bear the financial fruits that you get when you just hop around. just like NIL with college sports. All right. That's sometimes the best way to get a significant pay bump from year to year is by going out, seeing what your number is, and then going back to your program and saying, hey, this is what I'm actually worth, guys. Believe it or not, that is what I got for you. So if you eliminate NIL, you eliminate a huge reason players even enter the portal. So you get rid of NIL, and now kids are, at least in theory, transferring for legitimate reasons, whether it's, hey, being close to home, or football reasons, or, hey, I just like the coaches more over there, which you still can, in theory, see in this day and age in the transfer portal. But let's all be adults about this conversation. Many transfers are money driven. So yes, I'm going to eliminate NIL, because also, too, if you get rid of the transfer portal, you get rid of a very, very important tool for building rosters here. Like, not every single player transfers just to go chase a bag. Let's not get it twisted. Sometimes a coach that we've seen here, whether it be Jonathan Smith, whether it be the Mel Tucker era, when they come in here and they got to restructure some things, they got to rebuild, that means getting some players out of the program that don't necessarily belong at a Power 4 level. It's nasty. Like, that's the unfortunate part of this business and where college sports has headed. But it is what it is at this point. If you're not up to snuff to play Big Ten football, we gotta see you walk away so we can bring in some talent that can play Big Ten football. So that is also why I'm going to keep the transfer portal around too, because it is an aid, especially for schools like Michigan State's case, that need to see some roster turnover to get to the next chapter of where their program is heading. So JP writes in a question also about NIL. My question is, can you give some general idea on what NIL looks like per position / recruiting tier / conference, or some type of baseline? Maybe like, what does a quarterback or running back in the Big Ten earn? I know it's a super cloudy subject given it's based on media presence, skill, strength of schools, NIL program, etc. But would love to know, generally speaking, what we are talking about in terms of figures. Now, luckily, there is someone out there on Twitter that in December, he works with SANIL. His name is Jason Belzer. He had a bunch of charts graphing just what you're looking for, JP. Now, some of it might be a little outdated. I know we just said this was 5 months ago in December, but there are some numbers that I've been hearing that kind of go over these numbers. But for sake of conversation, let's talk about what he has seen for each position on the football field. Now, this is all predicated on how high you are ranked in the transfer portal. Like, if you're a top tier quarterback, on average, $350,000 is what we are looking at. Now, if you were just an average quarterback, or, just like a backup, for example, the average is $25,000. All right. It drops down all the way to that in the basement. The next highest position, if you want to go ahead and guess based on Jason Belzer's research, defensive back. If you're a top one in the transfer class, $250,000, $250K. Defensive line right behind that at $225,000. Wide receiver, running back, they're tied right behind them at $200,000. Again, these are for the top tier players. And then offensive line right after receiver and running back at $175,000. Now, if you're an average player, middle of the road, like maybe a guy that can start, but he's not going to be making an all-conference team, that was somewhere around, for all these positions, like $60,000 to $70,000. Now, with that said, you guys might be rooting for a quarterback this fall that is making well above $350,000. I don't know the exact amount, but I have a very strong hunch after talking to a few people that know things about things that it's a little higher than that. And that's not just Michigan State specific, of course. Like, we just saw 2 defensive linemen. What did I just say? That top guys were making $225,000. Yeah, Michigan State was giving double that to at least one of the defensive linemen. And the school they went to, they're paying even higher than that. So we are talking hundreds of thousands for top talent. Again, if you're a guy that is a rotational player or a replacement level starter, let's call it, you're making low 6 figures is my guess, maybe even the upper high 5 figures. But just like you said, JP, it does depend on the school where you're at. So that's a long way of saying a lot more than me and you made when we were in college. I'm assuming. I don't want to, to assume that you were maybe killing the stock market in your dorm over at Michigan State. But I wasn't necessarily making that kind of money when I was working at the cafeteria or MSU Green Line, or certainly the State News was not paying anywhere close to that. So, yeah, fun times. All right, we're going to get to some more mailbag questions here in a hot second. First, guys, just need to talk your ears off about Monopoly Go. That is right. It's time to pause and talk a little bit more about Monopoly Go. And I know what you're saying, flag on the play. You've already talked about that for a few weeks now, but hey, guys, there's so much more good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock, and there's just so much to get, like unique stickers you could trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, and hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges, a ton including their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine, and there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench and go download for free right now on Google Play or the App Store. It's game on with Monopoly Go. All right, one more mailbag question, keeping with NIL and the transfer portal, all that stuff. This is from Jeff. With the decommitment of Brandon Lane and the ridiculous comings and goings in the transfer portal, at what point do transfers sign a letter of intent so we could actually trust their commitment? I do want to reiterate this about the Brandon Lane thing. That truly was a mutual parting of ways there. That's all I will say about that. That's probably everything worked out for the better there, in my understanding. Secondly, and signing letter of intent. I don't know. You're trusting people that actually make these decisions to get off their you-know-whats and make decisions. Anyway, secondly, when does the transfer portal cycle end for bringing in players based on the number of players allegedly leaving versus numbers of players coming in? How are we going to assemble a full roster? Are we going to end up with 10 walk-ons who have no business playing in the Big Ten? I don't know about 10 walk-ons, but yeah, it is thin depth, just like we talked about in the first segment. Now, how Michigan State plans to supplement that, they have had a good amount of offers that were for upper-end FCS level players or even Division II players, like they tried to get Javier Suggs, defensive tackle out of Grand Valley State, on campus. But it's not, just random FCS players or Division II players. Like, these are guys that were FCS second-team All-Americans, for example, that they're giving offers to, or guys that can either compete for a starting role or be a really solid backup. So that's how they're going to try to go for it. Again, they didn't have to commit by last week. They really do have the whole summer to commit, although things will get wrapped up here in a few weeks, ideally, for both players and teams. But yes, thank you for the question there, Jeff. Matt C. writes in a basketball question. This is a really nice one. Jesus. Who can jump higher on land, Jackson Kohler or a sea turtle? No, that's not nice, Matt. I will say this. There's just one image that is just seared in my memory from last basketball season, and that is Jackson Kohler, a guy that I don't know has ever dunked the ball in his entire career, trying to recreate the Jordan logo against Purdue on that fast break. I will never forget that image. That you talk about going for it, man. But no, I'm going to go ahead and give Jackson Kohler the slight nod over the sea turtle by at least 2 inches. All right, Steve Daniels writes in. Sure, let's get nuts with this one. What would the 2024-25 basketball team look like if we could add peak Alvin Ellis to the roster? That's right. Alvin Ellis discourse in 2024. Let's get it popping, Steve. Hey, look, you get experience behind Akins and Frankie Fiddler. I mean, and if we're talking at his peak, we're going to go to that one game his senior year at Minnesota when he had 20 points in a 1-point win 2 days after Christmas to down the Gophers. That's right. I think it was a smooth 4-7 from beyond 3-point line. But yeah, I mean, hey, if we could find somehow another year of Alvin Ellis eligibility, career 36% shooter from 3. Let's say Jeremy Fears, Jaden Akins, they both need a breather. Okay, you trot out Trey Holloman and Alvin Ellis. Now, one thing you do worry about is that's stunting another year of growth for Garrick Norman. Do you really want Garrick Norman to be further backlogged in his college growth? No, you don't. And that's what makes this a good sign that this is all hypothetical. Alvin Ellis, I hope he's doing okay out there. But yeah, let's just start the Garrick Norman chapter of this Michigan State basketball journey we're on. Ken Glizzy Jr. writes in my favorite question here. And I love all questions, don't get me wrong, but this one goes right to my heart. What's your favorite hole at Forest Akers, east or west? So right off the top, I got to out myself. I have not played Forest Akers West yet. I will in about 3 or 4 weeks here with a good buddy. I'm going to go over there and play that. But right now, we're going to limit it to Forest Akers East. And folks, this is a no-brainer. Like, there's not even a debate as to what my favorite hole is. It's the 10th hole at Forest Akers East because it comes at just the right time. You just ended your first 9 holes. You shot a 46. You missed a 5-foot putt for bogey on hole number 9 that would have got you in the turn at a somewhat comfortable feeling. But no, you just even blew that opportunity. So there's only 2 things that you're looking forward to at the turn. That's a hot dog, okay, which is served pretty good, most times. I've gotten, a few cold hot dogs from there in my day. But what's even sweeter to look forward to after that 9th hole, as you're looking for a new mentality for the back 9, how about that 278-yard par 4, the 18 handicap hole, the easiest hole on the course. Nothing gets the mojo going like the 278-yard par 4. Poke one out there, call it a casual 250, 260, just a nice little flop wedge out there, tuck it nice and close to the pin, and then 2 putt for par. But hey, at least it's a par, and that's the first par you've seen in about an hour and a half of golf out there. But God, I love Forest Akers East, man. Love everything about it. Great price. Just very well kept, and I cannot wait to play Forest Akers West coming up this summer. Scott Tolanen, he's been a guest on the show a few times. He writes in a big question. Wife's due date is this week. First and foremost, congratulations, Scott, and to Scott's wife out there. That's big time. Anything I could practice now for suppressing an F-bomb when MSU inevitably gives up a 3rd and long in 3.5 months? Now, story time with Matt here. I'm going to make this question all about myself. My first game as a parent was that COVID season, the first game against Rutgers. I believe my son was, 4 days old at that point. It was single-digit days old, I believe. And that was the game where Michigan State had 6 fumbles. All right, and Rutgers beat them to knock off Mel Tucker in his first game in his MSU career. And I got to say, I was very even-keeled during that whole game. And no, it was not because my priorities shifted or I had a new perspective on life and the new son, or it certainly wasn't just growth. It was just because I was so god bleeping tired just as a person. I was so exhausted, so mentally drained, so just drained of all emotions. I couldn't even draw up any ire at any of those 6 fumbles. So Scott, it's not even practice or anything that you need to do ahead of time. You'll probably, with a 3.5-month-old child, just be so tired that let's say we go out there and we throw 2 pick sixes right off the bat against Florida Atlantic. You won't even have enough energy in you to drum up enough emotion. Now, with that said, for those that have been listening to this podcast for that long, I did have a very unhinged voicemail that I left Will Hunter back when he was the co-host here. Undressing the team. I wanted Jay Johnson fired immediately, which actually ended up being a pretty good take, I got to say. But it's after the game, and when you have to stew on it for maybe an hour, and your slow brain finally digests everything that's happened, and you mix that with a cocktail of sleep deprivation, that's when things get off the rails. So what you can prepare for is maybe sending your wife out on a nice spa day, an hour after the game, just so you could yell at a wall or just scream into a pillow once you do digest everything that did happen in that game. Because, guys, I know the parents out there know this. The brain works slow in those early parenthood days. So that's what you can do. Just understand that during the game, it'll just feel like you're on Novocaine. You'll just feel numb during it. But once that all washes away, that's when things get kind of hairy. So just prepare your family and friends for what happens about an hour after the game there. That's what I got for you right there. Milkman MSU writes in the hottest topic question of the week here. Kendrick or Drake, who are you siding with? Look, I like rap music. I just don't get into all the beefs all too often, although I do know that there is one between Kendrick and Drake. I know one is just being accused of being short, and the other one is being accused of spending too much time with people below the age of 18. So go ahead and give me the guy that's just being accused of being a little on the shorter side in this one. One of those accusations doesn't seem to be matching the severity of the other one. But yeah, again, I'm not going to spend minutes or hours going, just debating people on this. But yeah, I like rap music. I don't have the time nor the brain energy to go through every single lyric, every single bar, and decide who's going to win here. But if I'm just, taking it from a zoomed out look, I think Kendrick's running away with this one. Maxwell writes in, which online personality are you ready and willing to beef with as soon as the heat of Kendrick and Drake beef dies down? It's 100% Will Hunter. Without question. And then once we carve through him, we'll get Graham Couch on here. We are very friendly with each other. I'll just full turn heel and just start mother effing him right off the bat. Yeah, really catch him by surprise. So we'll chop down Will first. We'll go to Graham Couch, really catch him by surprise. And then who would be a good third one, guys? Oh God, who do I have a good time talking with all the time? That Carter Elliott. Yeah, we'll just absolutely blitzkrieg him. He won't see it coming either, because that's where you got to get him, just all by surprise. So actually, I'm not confident I could beat any three of them in any beef-related incidences, but whatever. There you have it, folks. That is Locked On Spartans, your team in green and white. Again, any questions, comments, segment ideas, lockedonspartans@gmail.com. Now go enjoy the rest of your day. Love you all. Go green.